Good morning. I'm Sharita Herring Oglesby with my I always call her my important co-host, Dr. Monique Wells. I'm excited today about our very special guest, who I'm hoping is also a relative. We've been talking about that. But Dr. Alan Cannedy is the Director of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs at North Carolina State University College and Veterinary Medicine. He also owns and operates a small ruminant and now I'm hoping I'm saying this, camelid mobile veterinary services in Hillsbury, North Carolina, which specializes in caring for llamas, alpacas, goats, and sheep. And I'm so excited about that because I want goats and I want sheep especially. Dr. Cannedy's commitment to mentoring and recruiting has been a hallmark of his career. He is dedicated to exposing underrepresented students to veterinary medicine, regularly inviting pre-college students to shadow him as he makes patient calls in his personal practice. This provides opportunities for many students from various cultural backgrounds, from both in-state and out-of-state colleges and universities, to gain clinical experience that supports their application to veterinary school. So join me in welcoming Dr. Cannedy, and also Monique, I'm going to let you take over as the host.
All right, thank you, Sharita, and welcome, Dr. Cannedy. I am so excited to talk to you today for so many reasons. So we're gonna jump right in. The first thing that I want you to tell our audience, our youth, is about the school that you chose to go to when you decided to become a veterinarian.
Yeah, gladly. And thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to share some of the things that I know and bring to the veterinary profession. I'll tell you right off the bat, I had no intentions of going to veterinary college when I was growing up. I was one of those that was more happy running around playing sports with my friends, with my buddies, and getting into mischief more so than academics. So when I looked at veterinary colleges, only two of them came to mind for me to even consider, and initially only one. One was my first. The first was my home state school. I grew up in Virginia, of Virginia Tech. So I looked at and I was thinking Virginia Tech was going to be my place of choice to go until I finished my first 2 years of undergraduate studies at my local community college, and I transferred to Virginia State University, where I met my mentor, Dr. Roscoe Bird, who was a Tuskegee graduate. So Dr. Bird took a group of us students that he was mentoring that were interested in becoming veterinarians down to Tuskegee during the spring of 1988, and we got a chance to see Tuskegee and see what Tuskegee was all about. I, heard of Tuskegee, but I wasn't familiar with all the history of Tuskegee and the fact that, it was training more African-American veterinarians than any other place on the planet at the time. So after going down and spending 3 days in Tuskegee, Alabama in March of 1988, and getting a chance to walk around in short and t-shirt versus when I was in Blacksburg visiting there. He also took us to Blacksburg to Virginia Tech. There was this constant 20-mile-an-hour breeze blowing across the plateau there, and it was one of the coldest winters that they'd ever had in Blacksburg, actually, during that time that we were there. So it quickly became a no-brainer for me, climate-wise, from the temperature standpoint, but then even more noticeable from the climate side of things that there were no other Black students in that program there. So I would have been the only one if I would have gone at that time. So at Tuskegee, I saw pretty much 90% of the folks running around there looked like me, and I felt like I fit right in. So it was a no-brainer that when I applied to Tuskegee, I got accepted there, that was going to be the place for me to go and spend my time versus my application to Virginia Tech, which I needed to take a GRE exam in order to get considered there at the time. And I hadn't taken that GRE, but they were willing to pay for me to take that GRE. They were doing everything they could to recruit and get me there, but I knew that I did not want to go to a place where I was going to be the only one that looked like me there. So that's what got me to Tuskegee in
All
a
right.
long-winded way.
All right. We're going to talk a little bit more about your work in diversity and multicultural affairs a little bit later, but I want to set some background for our youth right now. So you went to Tuskegee, and you're now you're at North Carolina State, and you're teaching actually, or are you only doing the work as the director? The director of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs.
I'm doing both. And in an academic institution, whether you're serving as an administrator, you're still teaching, especially any person of color. We're teaching those individuals around us the ways of people of color and what it is that is acceptable and not acceptable as far as treatment of us. So I teach cultural awareness modules. I bring in speakers that are from different cultures that we require, and it's integrated into our curriculum, that our students have to take these cultural awareness modules to learn about different things, differences from their backgrounds within the curriculum, so that when they go out as experts and professionals in the field, they can relate with people from diverse cultures and communities appropriately.
That's beautiful. And are you teaching any any medicine courses, or?
I did, not now. I have separated my clinical expertise from the College of Veterinary Medicine so that I could do my private practice that I started in 2004. I came to NC State in 1995, and I was a clinical faculty member doing all of the clinical teaching components up until I started my clinical practice in 2004. And that's when I shifted to primarily my administrative duties as a college's director for diversity and inclusion. And that's mainly to keep any conflict of interest from my private practice, my clinical practice, from what goes on at the College of Veterinary Medicine in the clinics. Now, I will say, one of the top referring veterinarians to our College of Veterinary Medicine when it comes to sheep, goat, llamas, and alpaca patients from that standpoint. So I do send those high-end hospitalization patients that need specialty services to our College of Veterinary Medicine. I don't have a clinical hospital setting. My services that I offer are primarily mobile on the farm services. So I'm a large animal mobile veterinarian.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. So I just wanted to ask about your choice of goats. So your goats and sheep and llamas and alpacas, and are goats your favorite out of those?
They are absolutely my favorite. And if I could get away with it and just work on goats, that's all I would do. That came about during my residency training time, my program that I did from 1995 to 1997 at NC State. During that first month that I came to NC State from the University of Tennessee, where I did a large animal rotating internship, my intentions during my large animal rotating internship at the University of Tennessee was to gain more knowledge and experience with horses, because when I started my pursuit of my dream of becoming a veterinarian, I had intended on going back home to Virginia and being a dairy cow vet. That's what I grew up working on a dairy farm and taking care of dairy cattle. So that's what got me interested in wanting to become a veterinarian. But by the time I graduated from Tuskegee, all the dairy farms up in Northern Virginia were becoming McMansions and condominiums. So I knew I wasn't going to make a living, going back to my hometown area, which was what my original plan was, because all the cows were gone. So I discovered goats during my residency. I discovered during my internship, though, prior to that I'm allergic to horses, which is what I was thinking that I was going to do. So my allergies to horses steered me away from pursuing that interest. But the discovery of goats, which I saw more goats in that first month of my residency training than I had my entire life. And I just absolutely fell in love with them.
Oh
I,
my goodness.
I realized that working with goats, my longevity as a veterinarian was going to be a whole lot better because they can't hurt you like a big old cow or a rodeo bull or something that's trying to maul you. I can potentially do.
It's true. I'm going to show just briefly. I found this image on your website. I want to see if I can share it real fast. Why is it not doing? Oh, here. Let's see. Can y'all see that? Can you see, Sharita, can you see?
Yeah.
So
That's
tell us about this picture.
yes, this picture was a photo op session that I took. I'm working with Purdue University on a program that we call the This Is How We Roll, where we go out and we mentor children K through 4 age group wise. And they needed a photo of me working with one of my favorite species and patients. So I went out and Jezebel, this particular goat right here, was the photo op goat of the day that I chose to take this photo with and send into them. So no, this is one of my clients' farms. They are a dairy goat producer here in North Carolina that has over 300 dairy goats. And I was out working at that farm that day, so took this photo for Purdue University's program that I partner with them on.
This is how we roll. That's good. I didn't know that you did that. That's very interesting. I'll try to remember to ask you more about that in a minute. But you have on a cape. So the cape, what does the cape say?
The cape has on the back of it, Humans. That's what we call ourselves through the This Is How We Roll program. The veterinarians that work with patients to help our humans that are connected with them.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. So that is just so much fun. I saw that and I was like, oh my God, he's super vet or something like that. Wonderful. All right. So my next question for you. So you talked about sheep and goats, you talked about llamas and alpacas, and your business has the words ruminants and camellids in it.
Yes.
So can you tell us the difference between ruminants and camellids?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I had to give my undergraduate lecture yesterday in the farm animal diseases course that I lecture in every year, and explain to the third-year undergraduate students the difference between a camelid and a ruminant. Well, ruminants are those animals that have 4 different parts to their stomachs. Mm-hmm. Cows, sheep, and goats. They are considered ruminants, 4 distinct separate parts. Mm-hmm. Unlike us as human beings, we're monogastrics, mono meaning one, gastric stomach. So simple, one stomach. Ruminants have 4 stomachs. Mm-hmm. Camelids are sort of a hybrid in between the real ruminant versus, they're technically, we call them pseudo-ruminants, pseudo meaning fake ruminant, in that they don't have 4 true separate parts to their stomach. They have 3. They have what we call a C1, a C2, and a C3. Compartment 1, the C stands for compartment, C1, C2. So they have those 3 different compartments. And the first compartment, C1, is sort of a combination of the rumen and reticulum, we call it, those first 2 parts of a ruminant stomach. C2 is analogous to the abomasum, which is a true stomach, which is just like ours. And then the last part, C3, is analogous to the omasum, which is the 4th part of a ruminant. So again, 3 parts versus 4 parts. That's the difference in a camelid versus a true ruminant.
Okay. And the word camelid, obviously, people will think of camel.
Yes.
So are camels actually camelids too?
Camels are their own. They are in that large family of Old World and New World camels. So the camelids are the New World, which is the llamas, alpacas, vicuñas, guanacos, these animals that come from South America. So they're all much smaller than their big cousin, the camel. And they're the ones that we put in the camelid classification that are similar anatomy, just a lot smaller.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to show everybody. Again, these are pictures from your website. Can y'all see that? Ruminants and camelids.
Yeah. So to the left, you have the vicuñas, which are very, very small. And then to the right, you got some alpacas.
Okay. So these are both camelid species.
They're both camelids, yes.
Okay.
Now, Monique, before you move off that page, I've always had an interest in possibly bringing either one, especially the llamas, to my land, but I've been told that they spit on you. I mean,
yeah, they can, and they can spit accurately up to 6 feet.
Oh my goodness.
What makes them spit? Is it being teased, or I mean, if I'm just taking care of them, are they going to just spit on me, or what is the deal with that?
No, I mean, they don't just spit on you just because they can. I mean, they're pretty docile, pretty nice animal in general. The meanest animal on the planet is the human being. So, if you're worried about something that's going to get you, you should worry about our kind more so than anything else. It's a behavior that they do to each other, primarily as a mechanism to, steer somebody away if they're annoyed, or if a lot of times when they're trying to mate, males will try to mate with females, whether they're actually bred and pregnant or not. So the females are the ones that do it mostly to kind of turn the males off and make them say, all right, no, I'm not interested. Go away. That's what it's spit in their face.
Okay. Okay.
Wow. Okay, so here's another question. Are these animals considered exotic?
They are, yeah. They're not native to North Carolina, so it depends on where you are, whether you call them exotic. The term exotic means that you're just from a different region from where you're at that time. So they're not native to our North Carolina. So the ones that I work with here are exotic, and again, they're originally from South America. So that's the ones that we got here were imported for the first time back in the early 80s. So they haven't been in North America for very long. So they are, yes, truly the definition of exotic animals, meaning that they've been imported here from another place.
Okay, wonderful. So exactly what kind of work are you doing with them?
Just providing them with whatever health care that they need. And their healthcare needs here in North Carolina and here in North America are quite different than their healthcare needs are from their native country of South America. So we bring them to a place that is not natural to them and put them in situations where they get exposed to different problems. Those different problems, primarily the diseases that they face and deal with here in North Carolina, are parasites and heat. The mountains of Chile and Peru, where they come from, that's cool. Here in North Carolina, it's Raleigh area especially, it's very hot and humid. So heat stress, things of that nature, making sure that you showed those pictures, those animals, they're raised for their fiber. They're raised for their meat in South America. They're food animals. They eat them there like we eat cows and pigs and chickens. So down there, they are in a different environment, dealing with a different set of circumstances. You bring them here in our parts of the U.S. and Georgia, North Carolina, it's very hot, like I said, and humid. They deal with parasites and the heat and the humidity, and they suffer from that. So these are not the best places for them unless they're up into the mountainous parts of our state.
Okay. And so how many of these clients do you have? How many people are raising llamas and alpacas in North Carolina?
More than need to be, I will say that. But it varies with the different parts of the state. Like I said, the mountainous part of the state where the majority are and where they should be. But for those that have them a little bit closer here to Raleigh area and the coast, those are the ones that I deal with that tend to have more of the challenges associated with the heat and humidity.
And they get parasites. And so we haven't, well, I'm going to try not to go off on a tangent. So the parasites that they get, are they normally parasites that sheep and goats would get? Or, what kinds of parasites are they? Because since they're not native to the state,
Yes.
how are they getting these things, and where they come from?
Yeah, great question. Very similar set of parasites that sheep and goats and cattle as well they get the same ones that ruminants get, except for a little bit different species when it comes to, for example, their coccidia parasite that they get. It's species of coccidia that is very specific to their to them. So their one of the worst parasites is blood-sucking one called Haemorrhagis contortus. That one is one that will spread between them, sheep, goat, cattle as well. So that one's really bad, and I have to treat them basically the same as I would a cow or sheep or goat.
Okay. All right. And so that brings me to my next question, which is about your mobile practice. And I'm going to go back to my screen because I borrowed from I loved your website. I borrowed from it.
Sure.
So here we have a picture of your truck. So tell us more. You talked earlier about how you are a mobile vet. Tell us more about that whole concept. When I was in school, we call that field service. I went to Penn. We call that field service. And I know that it has different names, places, but so tell us more about mobile veterinary services.
Yeah, so most of your mobile veterinarians tend to do their work, and we do our work on the farm or at the house. And mobile veterinarians not only do large animal house calls now, small animal veterinarians are doing this just like the large animal veterinarians. It's become more and more popular here in the 2000s. So people love that convenience. They love that opportunity to having the vet come to their house versus taking the animal, loading it up, taking it to a stressful clinic sort of a situation. So obviously that involves a lot more detail where the client has to pay for a house call fee. So I have to charge them appropriately for the convenience of coming to their homes to take care of their animals. And then there are the added risk factors associated with that, especially in times of COVID and other risk situations that exist, especially for minority veterinarians going into areas where we may or may not be as welcome as some of the majority veterinarians. So from that standpoint, a house call or mobile services veterinarian that's going to the client's domain are in some ways at their mercy when they get there, because it's not in the protective scenario of your safe clinic, as you may want to call it, where you have a lot more control over things. Now, the flip side of that is that you do have the opportunity to see things from a more true and realistic standpoint. Because clients will tell you one thing, but then if you can get a chance to go and see what's actually going on there on the farm, you can get a full appreciation of the big picture of what's actually happening versus what they're telling you. So it's a wonderful thing. It gets me an opportunity to get out and be in outside, in the environment that I'm most comfortable with, which is outside. I'd rather be out versus inside a clinic myself all day. And that's what most other mobile large animal veterinarians would likely say as well.
Okay. And I just want to point out on this, the stuff that you have on the back. Is this a truck, or is it what exactly is this?
Yeah, this is my veterinary truck. It's basically a Chevy Silverado truck that has this specialty box that I purchased called a buoy box that fits into the back of it. It's my hospital on wheels. And I have all of my equipment, all my supplies in there that I need to do and provide the services that I do to my patients when I go on these farm calls. I have a food stamp truck that I actually have an extra back seat where I can carry my students in that I'm taking with me, and my technician and myself in the front seat, and have a 3-seat back row there for students that are needing to get experiences that they have to have in order to qualify to get admitted into veterinary school.
Okay.
I always make sure that at least two of those seats are made available for students from underrepresented backgrounds to get experience, because we know that it's a little bit more challenging for our minority students to find places that are willing to allow them to shadow and get the experiences.
Absolutely. So this is the truck with the little hatch open,
Yes.
and people can see all of these are medicines, equipment, brush, I see, pail. Tell us a little bit about what's in the back.
Yeah, all of my medicine, all of my drugs. I carry an ultrasound machine back there with me so that I can do, ultrasound evaluations, my lab collection tools, needles, syringes, all of those things that a veterinarian needs and uses. But you can see one of the most important things is that bucket with that brush.
Yeah.
That bucket with that brush is there for me to practice biosecurity and making sure that before I leave that farm, that I scrub up, I clean my equipment, my shoes, to make sure I'm not transporting any diseases to my next client's farm. So practicing biosecurity and not being a conduit or a fomite carrying different diseases from farm to farm as I go is extremely important to make sure that I don't do that.
That is
That's
so important.
that's a really neat looking box. And I'm assuming that those are drawers and they slide out and.
Yes, they are. They slide out. I have a refrigerator in the very, very front where I keep my refrigeratable drugs. It's conditioned. I plug it in. It has a heater, cools when, so that I can keep all of my drugs thermal regulated appropriately. And like I said, it's got everything that I need to do. I can do surgeries on animals in the field if I have to. It's literally a hospital on wheels.
Even has the paper towel thing there. I mean, that is just, it's so well made.
Yeah, I got a water pump, so for hot and cold water, I can run and, scrub up and make sure that I can wash my hands or self up after in between farm calls.
And I'm going to go back to the first picture here because I want to point out the veteran. Tell us about this sort of symbol here. There's a V.
That's called the veterinary caduceus, the snake with the the V for the veterinary symbol. There is what we use as our symbol to indicate that we are a professional within the veterinary profession.
Okay.
Now the human medicine side has two snakes. We have one.
Okay. And I also wanted to comment on this word right here. This word is llama, but it's spelled with one L. And when I saw that, I was like, isn't there an L missing? But there actually isn't. Can you talk about this word versus the llama with two L's?
Absolutely. And I usually will quiz my students on my exams when I teach them about llamas. When they see llama spelled with a single L, it's the same thing as the word camelid, Camelid. We talked about camelids. That's what the single L llama means, which incorporates all of the South American camelid family members when you use a single L. When you spell it with a double L, you're actually talking about that individual large member of the camelid family called the llama, which is spelled with two L's.
Okay.
But when you're seeing it with a single L, it actually is including alpacas, vicuñas, guanacos, and llamas.
Okay, perfect. And you talked about having a technician. So you have a technician that goes out with you everywhere?
I do, not all the time. Sometimes if I'm on an emergency, I just jump in the truck and go. I don't have time to wait for my technician. I got to go take care of business right away. But typically I will have a technician or have some students or some assistants or an animal. It's one of those touchy things. When you say technician, you're specifically talking about someone who has been trained and certified versus the rules and the laws the way that they are. You cannot call yourself a technician unless you have actually had that training and that certification and that degree. Otherwise, you're animal assistant, as we say, versus an animal technician or veterinary technician. Okay.
All right. And so what kind of turnaround do you have, or turnover, I guess is the better word, for technicians? Do you have a technician that's been with you for years, or are you doing bringing on someone new every couple of years? How does that work?
I have a few technicians. The one that I had with me for the longest, having and keeping technicians a little bit challenging. The one that I had with me the longest got married, had some children, so that kind of changed her life priorities.
Okay.
So having multiple options for technicians is always a wise thing. And there are some rules and regulations within the veterinary profession that exist, and that the recommendation here in our state of North Carolina is that for every doctor, there should have 3 technicians. For those that have fixed facilities, for those of us that are in mobile facilities, it's different. We don't need to have 3 techs for every 1 doctor.
Okay.
And I can tell you though that that's not the case, because there is a great under supply of veterinary technicians worldwide right now. So
Okay.
there are a lot of clinics that absolutely have 1 technician for the whole 3 or 4 doctor show, because they can't find any others. They can't hire them. So for those that are interested in not necessarily going the full pathway of becoming a doctor of veterinary medicine, there is a great demand now and a lot of incentives out there to try to get individuals to pursue careers as veterinary nurses is one way of calling it, but veterinary technicians is the proper term that we're looking for, and trying to recruit and get more people to do.
Okay. That is excellent. That is excellent. I know that the students who are frequently with us from the South Bronx Early College Academy are going to be interested in that. Just our previous YVI session was with a veterinary technician turned entrepreneur and inventor. But he talked a lot about what it took to become a veterinary technician. So you're sort of serendipitously, following up on that session and elaborating on the real and huge need for people to consider that as a career path. So that is super. So I wanted to go back to your work in diversity and multicultural affairs. You've mentioned many times that students of color, people of color, will probably have challenges that people who are not of color, white Americans pursuing a veterinary path would have. And you've talked about making space available in your mobile clinic, your mobile veterinary service for minority students who need to shadow in order to, fulfill the requirements to get into that school, et cetera. Tell me and tell us all about how that dovetails into what you do as Director of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs at NCSU.
Well, if I tell you all about it, we'd be here for the rest of the month. So I'll tell you what I can.
Okay.
In the period of time that we have, in a nutshell, that my job at North Carolina State University as a Director for Diversity and Multicultural Affairs is to try to promote and encourage and recruit more individuals from underrepresented backgrounds to pursue their dream of becoming veterinarians and support them. So we have made, and I say we, as a veterinary profession, a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, and put a lot of barriers in place that discourage and prohibit individuals from underrepresented backgrounds from gaining access into our programs. So my work has mainly been to try to break down some of those barriers, change those rules, change those regulations that are in place that are stopping individuals that are otherwise very interested in becoming veterinarians, otherwise very capable, very competent of achieving success if they were given the opportunity to do so. So one example I'd say that dovetails, as you've asked, into what it is that I do through my personal life and veterinary practice, is that again, I make sure that I provide space in my vehicle for the individuals that I know that want those opportunities, that aren't getting those opportunities in other places, to come and be with me so that they can at least gain those hours of contact time that they must have in order to be qualified, in order to apply to get in. So that's why, you know, I leave 2 of those 3 seats available for those individuals when I do that. But at the same time, working from within the system to try to change it so that we drop our requirement hours, which used to be, when I first started on our admissions committee at North Carolina State University, 2,000 hours minimum.
Oh gosh.
We dropped from
Minimum.
2,000 hours to now we still require hours, but 200 hours are what we require minimum now. And that's likely going to change here sooner or later, because we're one of the, if not the only, I don't know for sure, healthcare professions that requires an individual to actually have time, shadowing in order to qualify to get admitted, because human medical schools don't require any hours for
Exactly.
their, individuals that are applying to get into a human training program.
Yeah.
So we do that. So, and other things, other barriers like the GRE exam that I mentioned earlier, the graduate record exam, that we know of the cultural biases that are associated, and the privileged individuals that can go take prep courses to kind of help them achieve higher scores on that. URMs, underrepresented minorities, don't always have those opportunities. So we finally got wise and came to our senses at NC State, at least, and dropped that test as a requirement. So eliminating some of those barriers of things that we've had in place for forever in many of our veterinary programs that are just restricting, again, these otherwise very competent individuals from having a chance to get in and get a chance to pursue their dreams.
Okay, that is beautiful. Wow. All right. I have one other question about something that I read about you, not on your website, but on another website. I can't remember where it was, about how you golf and you do yoga and you fish to relieve stress. And I want to have you talk about why managing stress is really important, especially for veterinarians in general, and veterinarians of color in particular.
Yeah, well, I'll start with that response to the fact that managing stress by any person is needed in order for them to have some level of happiness and fulfillment in life. Managing stress by people of color is not done at a level that it is typically done by people from predominant culture, by white folks. So they get many more opportunities to address and manage a lot of the stress issues that they deal with than we do. And I say that because the opportunities are there for them more. The opportunities are there in a sense in that they're accepted more in a lot of the situations, and you see more of them in the situations that bring them pleasure, relaxation, and safe and healthy ways that we don't. Like, our US history tells us that if you're a person of color and you're jogging through a neighborhood, that someone may see you and assume that you don't belong there, you're likely to not only have a very unhealthy outcome from that, you're likely to lose your life from that. So from that standpoint, you're finding places and finding ways and finding things that can be done just by, from a person of color standpoint, can be challenging in itself and can be stressful to find places that would accept you to do those things that you consider fun and relaxing. When you add to that the question that you're asking as a veterinarian, we are individuals in the least diverse of all the healthcare professions trying to do some things that our colleagues are doing and taking for granted that they don't have to think about that we do. that adds another layer of stress. When you pull up on a farm call, or I do in my vehicle, and I have, my white technician with me, and the farmer thinks that the technician is a doctor, and I'm just the technician driving the vehicle to get the doctor there, kind of thing. That's a whole different layer of stress in itself there, that you got to explain yourself to these individuals, and no, you're talking to the wrong person. I'm the actual one that you should be. So making sure that I identify myself, having that name badge on, I'm Dr. Cannedy, to let them know that, these are my credentials and who I am. Again, the level of stress that type of daily effort takes, it wears on you. So yes, you've seen some of the pictures of the things that I do and the way that I relax. Well, I can tell you my relaxation, through fishing and golfing around the world and fishing around the world, every place on this planet that I go, I try to throw a fishing hook out there because I love fishing and I love eating fish. I know there are individuals that don't agree with that, but I do eat what I catch.
Okay.
From that standpoint, when I get out of the country, that's when I feel like I'm not having to look over my shoulder as a person of color and worry about some of these stressors that we have to deal with in the lines of racism here in the United States that don't exist in a lot of these other places that I go when I go visit and relax and go on vacation. So that's extremely important to me. I got to get out of the US at least twice a year to go find a place where I can let my lack of hair down. Well, we'll go with this hair. Let that hair down. Not have to worry about, if I get stopped, if I'm going to get a speeding ticket or if I'm going to get shot.
Yeah.
So I know that's a lot for some of the age audience group that, you're targeting here with our conversation, but these are things that I've had those conversations with at a young age with my parents about how to behave, when, I am stopped by the police for whatever purpose that they're claiming that they're stopping me for, and how to behave and conduct myself. So as a professional, I still have to carry those thoughts and concerns in my mind. I drive my vehicle, my truck, over about 35 to 40,000 miles a year. So I'm a big target out there on the highway. And I am a speeder. So that definitely makes me even more of a target, because I race down the road to try to get to my next appointment to take care of my patients as quickly and efficiently as I can, so I can continue my work in my day. But I do know that I need to slow down to make sure that I'm not putting myself, and especially when I have my students with me, at any higher level of risk than need be. But yes, relaxation and enjoying the fruits of our labor as professionals. For me, as you said, golfing, fishing, traveling is what I do.
All right. All right. And my last question is, when you lay your stethoscope down and you park your mobile vehicle for the last time, what are you going to do?
Well, I'll still be a veterinarian. Once you earn that veterinary degree, no matter where you go, what you do, and how you do it, you will always be considered a doctor of veterinary medicine. For me, retirement means doing what I want, when I want, and how I want to do it, without having to worry about the work side of things. That for me is going to still mean going around this world, seeing what it has to offer, seeing things that I have not seen and done, and tasting them.
Okay.
I'm a foodie. I love to eat things. So enjoying, like I said, all the work that I've put in the years that I have served as a practicing professional, a teaching professional, an administrator in the profession of veterinary medicine. And that's what I try and will always continue to do, is encourage those that are coming behind me to pursue their dreams, find those things that they're interested in doing, especially if it's in the profession of veterinary medicine. And if it's not, still find your love, your passion, your goals, your dreams, pursue them, and then make the most of your time on this planet, and be kind to people. There's a lot of madness going on in the world right now, and we as a human species, I said this earlier, we're the meanest animal on the planet. And we really need to find a way to fix that,
Yeah.
to become nicer to other individuals on this planet so that we all can get along a lot better and have better, healthier, happier lives. So I'm going to go try to continue to role model and mentor that spirit of things that I believe in and make the most of life while I can.